The state of Nebraska is well known for its cornfields and cattle ranches, but less known for its thousands of miles of rivers. One of Nebraska's most scenic rivers, fed by springs from the Ogallala Aquifer, runs 80 miles through the heart of the Sandhills. The Dismal River. Our plan was to meet at a campground on the Loop River north of Mullen Friday night. Saturday, we'd run the 2-hour shuttle, launch from Highway 97, and paddle 15 miles to the Seneca Bridge, where we had reserved a campsite. Sunday, we'd do 24 miles from Seneca to the Old Thetford Bridge. Our first day began at the private campground about a mile north of Mullen, where our group met and camped the night before. The drive from the launch to the takeout takes at least an hour each way, and we didn't want to use up all our daylight hours on the highway, even though the drive on Highway 2 is beautiful. The launching point for the first stretch of the Dismal can be harrowing. The bluff is steep and eroded and extremely slippery when it's muddy. Hauling these long boats and all our camping gear down this bank is not easy. The Dismal River is no place for novices, and we were reminded of that immediately.
Clear! Get yourself lined up.
Within the first few hundred feet, it's not uncommon for paddlers to find themselves capsized when faced with the three components that make the Dismal so especially challenging. The swift 8-mile-per-hour current, its serpentine curves, and abundant fallen cedars. Upon setting out on this river, turning back or getting out before Seneca is practically impossible. Paddlers are said to be married to the Dismal until the takeout 15 miles downstream. The current makes paddling upriver hopeless. The terrain alongside the river, consisting of steep, sandy, rough terrain and thick vegetation, makes hiking out equally impractical. There are no nearby roads or houses, and there is no cell phone service. The surrounding land is a vast sea of sandhills, but it is privately owned, and attempting to hike out across these lands can be considered trespassing by landowners. Paddlers who find themselves unable to continue downstream may face a long wait to be rescued, most likely overnight.
Comes a little bit of a snag on the right, but we should make it through fine.
There are 3 points of particular interest on the Highway 97 to Seneca stretch. There is a huge sand-covered boiling spring which we rediscovered a few hours into the day on the river left. Cold, clear water erupts from the aquifer in gigantic belches several times each minute. Less than an hour past the spring is a short stretch of white water with about a 2-foot descent and a large rock to dodge at the end. There is a well-worn trail on the river left for portaging around for those who choose not to run this section. Even in our long laden boats, we decided to give it a try. We all passed through without incident, but Bret capsized as he decided to relive the exhilaration by paddling upstream. Not long after the falls is a wild game enclosure. The bad news is that you'll have to exit your boat and pass it through a box on the river right, and then walk over a ladder to retrieve it on the other side. There are 2 of these gates at the west and east end of the enclosure. The good news is that you'll have a chance to spot the bison and elk who once roamed freely and abundantly in this region. We reached the Seneca Bridge, the end of our day's paddle, 6 hours after launching. We set up camp with plenty of daylight to spare and prepared for a relaxing night at camp after the intensity of the river's challenges. About 8:30 p.m., well past dark, a young woman and 2 young men came up off the river to our campsite with terrifying news. They left 4 of their friends upstream to come ahead for help. They thought the river was going to be a 3-hour leisurely float. Their friends were out there, dressed in summer clothes, soaking wet, with the temperatures rapidly plummeting to 40 degrees. The county sheriff was notified, and there was talk of the local community mounting a horseback search and possibly conducting a search by airplane, but there was not much that could be done to help them after dark, especially given the fact that the 4 were last seen about 7 miles from the takeout, and no one knew if they continued paddling through the snags and strainers in the dark, tried to hike out into the desolate sand hills, or decided to try to find a place to stay put and survive the cold night ahead without any survival supplies or even dry clothes. With each minute that passed, the probability for a grim outcome increased. It was 10:30 when we heard the stragglers calling as they rounded the bend and saw our lights on the bridge. They were all sobbing and shivering, but they were alive and relatively unscathed.